Hi, I'm Dr. Dominic McLoughlin, your business specialist. In this final video, we're going to look at the top two boxes of this chart, mindset and motivation. In our first two videos, you would have seen information on trust in the workplace. So the worst managers in terms of mindset refuse to take ownership of poor decisions, bad outcomes or errors. They would rather shift blame onto the team members, leaving them to deal with any consequences. So this is kind of idea of like they're not actually owning whatever's going on. They're not there sort of supporting. Their mindset was to try and deflect. It was interesting, the numbers was surprisingly high, where that was based on race or gender. So there was this kind of discriminatory element sometimes as well. That resulted in most team members being reluctant to try anything in case it went wrong. So if we think about things like innovation and suggesting ideas and so on, then all of this sort of mindset shuts down any opportunity to get ideas contributed, to get new suggestions and so on. Any increase in team members' skills was seen as a threat to their own position. So a lot of these managers appeared defensive. So if someone was building their skills and getting more capable, that was seen as like a threat to the manager's role or to their authority or their position. There was very little positive feedback. Training and development was discouraged because they weren't looking to build skills. And they also closed to any changes, such as suggestions for improving processes or the working environment. And if there was a change which was accepted and then enacted, then the worst managers in the respondents' view took the credit for that. So if something went well, they'd go, "Oh, that was my idea all along." In terms of the best managers, from the point of view of the open-ended responses, they could admit when they'd made a mistake. So this, again, squares with the idea of showing some vulnerability, of saying, yes, I'm sorry, I've messed up. And also that they were able to foster a learning environment. So that idea that it's okay to make a mistake as long as we learn from it was kind of connected in the responses. Also, team members were not afraid to then make mistakes, but were focused on learning on them because of that environment. And those managers also took responsibility for their own actions and decisions. And in terms of the way that the respondents described them, the most common, descriptions of these best managers was that they were down to earth and they were seen as humble. So again, sort of interesting in terms of who are the inspirational or transformational leaders that we kind of think of. The research would suggest that that's one of the features. So then in terms of motivation, they were interested in benefiting themselves above every other concern. So that would kind of make sense in terms of that mindset we talked about. They were interested in or motivated to maintain their power and their position to advance their career and maximize monetary benefits, usually bonuses. So there would be this kind of thing of, okay, we've got to bring that forward, or we've got to push that out because we've got, I want to get my bonus, or perhaps I'll make the best decision or change the timing of decision based on that. They would happily make people redundant for a marginal increase in profitability in order to achieve those bonuses, which led to frustration for the team in a sense of being just a number. It's like, well, I'm not really valued as a person. Some of the symptoms included unrealistic expectations of the team, little concern for the needs of individuals or their well-being. So there's that kind of like overwork, over-pressured kind of environment. Also, some of the very worst managers had no regard for personal problems. So if someone approached them about sickness or stress or trauma, the worst managers were not really inclined to understand or lacked the capacity, and reacted instead with anger with team members who raised such issues, which usually was something along the lines of, oh, that means that now I'm going to have to X, Y, or Z, or that means more work for everyone else, or whatever it was. So it's sort of like a blaming kind of approach to someone having a misfortune. So this led then to be characterized in the open-end responses as only caring about themselves. In terms of the best managers, they were much better able to strike the balance between the needs of the individuals, the team, and the organization. They had those things clear and were able to balance them. They thought about the needs of the team members before their own needs, and sometimes even would sacrifice their bonus or their own comfort in order to ensure that the team succeeded or that a team member was well looked after. There was also much more genuine interest sort of displayed by these managers in the professional growth of team members. So they would create opportunities for learning, create opportunities for training, they'd provide coaching and mentoring, and that led to all of the team members being happier because there was an increase in knowledge levels. They felt their careers were progressing and the skills of the team were also being increased. So this obviously enhanced employees' job satisfaction and performance, and the description there was often described as selfless. The other thing about the worst managers is that they weren't inspiring, so they didn't lead by example. They didn't follow through on commitments. They tended to use a dictatorial approach. They tended to value profit over people.
They didn't show appreciation for the effort put in by team members. They cared very little about their work and rushed through it. They did the bare minimum. At times, they would give their own responsibilities to the team, and were often seen as incompetent because they weren't able to do the work. People sometimes perceived that as being they weren't capable of doing the work. And these managers not only impacted on their team members, but on families as well. There was quite a few examples where people said how that had impacted their home life. The best managers, on the other hand, were concerned with the great customer experience, like the kind of end result. And they were interested in listening to clients, putting their needs first and providing good service. They were happy to roll up their sleeves and help with the dirty work, the stuff which they wouldn't normally have to do. They created a workplace that was perceived as safe, open, comfortable, free of stress, calm, happy, supportive, and promoted a learning environment. So this tended to create a low-stress work environment that team members enjoyed working in. And they generally described these managers as smart, intelligent, competent, and capable. And they said that these managers had the experience and knowledge and the skills to accomplish the work objectives. So in conclusion, the best managers are really perceived to have good character, and that builds strong trust in their teams, which leads to beneficial business outcomes and also leads to a much better workplace for people. We can encourage a better approach through helping new managers in particular in this kind of area. So I think it's interesting that, you know, the academic literature in terms of the articles that have been published, research that I did and others have done, was actually backed up by the open-ended questions and the way that they kind of came into alignment with the kind of ideas of, you know, mindset, motivation, behavior, etc.
I hope you found this video useful. If you'd like to find out more information, you can like and subscribe. You can also check out my website, businessleaderslab.com or dominicmclaughlin.com.